And welcome to another episode of Patriots 4th and 2. I'm your host, as always, Derek Havens, and joining me, also as always, Mr. Steve Balestrieri. We're both PatsFans.com bloggers. On today's episode, we're going to start off with talking about the Patriots' win in Chicago against the Bears, 19-3 this last Sunday, as well as talking about a couple of different league topics, so hopefully some time in the middle, and then previewing the upcoming game this week. Steve, as always, before we start off, how you doing?
Doing great this week. I mean, this was their best game of the year so far. The Patriots, I thought this was a complete game, complete team win. You know, they had everything going for the first time, which was nice to see. Defense really stepped up and held, the Bears to just 3 points and 142 yards. I mean, that was, I thought that was a great job. I thought, we finally got to see a little bit of AVP's offense, right?
Yep.
Because now they had the running game going a little bit. The pass protection wasn't bad. And, they were able to do those shots down the field. And, in play action, Drake had a good day. I can't remember the exact numbers, but they were good. And so,
Drake's numbers, 15 for 25, 184 yards, 1 touchdown, and an interception. I didn't think it was his best game. I actually thought it was one of his worst games. He had some great flashes, though. I mean, he had a couple of big-time throws, and we'll get into that. But continue on.
Yeah, and I just, overall, like I said, his numbers were good in play action. I can't remember exactly what they were. But no, he didn't have a great statistical day. But, how the week played out and the way things happen, this is definitely his team now. And we'll talk about that more in the next few minutes. But I just thought it was a great overall effort. And you know what? The coaching staff did a great job on Sunday. And we haven't said that much this year.
No, we have not. I think the coaching staff came prepared, and they had a good game plan instilled with the players. I thought the Bears, the first couple of snaps right off the top, I thought they showed a lot of energy, and then that quickly changed, and it felt like the Patriots were in control. Even when they were only up 3-0, it felt like the lead was significantly bigger than it was. Obviously, one play can change that, but, I mean, you go through, I mean, the defense, we'll get to them because they deserve their flowers 100%. Offensively, it looked like the running game got back, on track a little bit. Stevenson had 74 yards. Again, Drake Maye, I thought the offensive line, and I probably should whisper this, but they weren't that bad. They weren't that bad this week. Look, I mean, there's not that many times we've been able to say that this season either. So I thought that, Drake, again, there are some issues with his play this last week that we can also get into, but I thought he had some really, really big time throws. Excellent throw to Hooper down the sideline. The one to Polk at the end of the first half to set up that 3-point, which I thought was a huge, I just thought it was a huge moment for him personally. I just thought that was cool. As far as AVP's game plan and his play calling, to your point in the opening statements, I felt like he did open up the bag of tricks a little bit. And honestly, I was actually really surprised, and I'm going to spin it in a positive way and take one thing out of it, which is I don't think he would do that if he didn't have the confidence in Drake Maye to run it. So I think that is one of the biggest takeaways from just that. Now, you can criticize the play calling if you didn't like it or you didn't like you didn't like anything about it. I think just if you can peel away just that one little piece of, well, he obviously trusts him. And I definitely want to get into Drake and the leadership things and the Kendrick Bourne and the receiver room situation. We'll do that after this recap, okay? And then we'll, switch over. But defensively, man, what a performance by the front seven. Really just swarmed Caleb. Caleb had, I think there was 34 plays, I want to say. Let me have to look at his numbers real quick. There were 34 plays, I want to say. He had the ball over 6 seconds. I mean, he was just holding that ball and patting it. And I mean, he went 16 for 30. So yeah, it wasn't 34 attempts. There was multiple. I think it was a certain percentage. He had over 6 seconds to, before he threw the ball, and that was mostly because he was holding it and he was scared to take the little checkdowns. I think people who aren't familiar with his game don't realize that that's who he was at USC and Oklahoma. He's a play extender. He's a playmaker. What comes with those things, Steve, is that you can get wrapped up in the front seven, the secondary. They were just awesome on defense.
Yeah, and again, to your point, I was just on. I just finished another show, the South Florida Tribune, inside the Pigskin show down there, and we have people from all over, and we were talking about that game. A lot of people watched it because they were curious to see the two rookie quarterbacks, and that's been the knock on Caleb Williams. He tries to play hero ball way too much, and when you get in the pros, you're not going to have everyone wide open all the time, even with the receiver room that they have. Sometimes you just have to take the check down and go on. And he refused to do that. And, at least 3 or 4 of those sacks, I thought, were because he was just holding the ball way too long. He refused to take the check down, and he was trying to make a big play every time he dropped back to pass. And, nobody does that. I mean, you look at Patrick Mahomes and like last night I was watching Tua. So many of those guys' passes are behind the line of scrimmage now.
Yep.
They take their shots, don't get me wrong, but they know that in this league, you're not going to get that on every down.
Yeah, and I think Drake, if you go back and look at some of this, you meaning the general you go back and look at this last game, there were some big time throws. Again, I don't think that you could ask for a better pass than the one he threw to Jalen Polk at the end of that first half. I mean, I know I already mentioned it, but it was just gorgeous. But I do think that there's a thing with all rookie quarterbacks, and if you go back and look at Drake, it was the same way. There were a couple opportunities where I think he kind of hesitated because he didn't think it was quote unquote open, but NFL open is different than what he saw open at UNC, and that's part of the learning curve. I do think he's ahead of where many people thought he would be. Again, he's not perfect, and I do want to give some credit to. I do think that they could upgrade the offensive coaching staff, for one. For two, I do think they deserve a lot of credit for where they have Drake at this point. I mean, there was a lot of concerns, and I'm sure that he'll have some plays, that interception, that turnover. You can't have that kind of, interception. And that's been his issue with some of these turnovers. But people forget he's only played so many games. I mean, very early on, it's going to take some time. There's going to be hills. There's going to be valleys. We knew that. We knew that with the rookie quarterback coming in.
But when you look at this game in a very narrow lens, you saw Drake Maye playing within the system, right? And he was trying. It wasn't perfect, like we said. It wasn't even his best game, but the fact that they had the running game going, as the game went on, I thought he got better. This to me was like one of those weeks where I think you can see, and we'll talk about it maybe some more. This is his team now. This is definitely his team.
Yeah.
And you see the way the other players relate to him. And for a 22-year-old kid, I think he's doing a fantastic job.
I totally agree. And we'll circle back to that, but I want to talk about the defense first, because the defense, again, was, Todd, he is coming along rapidly. Again, I think a lot quicker than a lot of people, thought. I mean, I think Chris Sims was on, whose podcast is that? What am I blanking out? It's the Tommy Kern's podcast. And Chris Sims was on there, and he was a big Drake Maye. He was really kind of against him coming out. I know Merrill Hodge said that if, you draft Drake Maye, someone's going to get fired, which I saw one of the funnier comments underneath saying, yeah, he did get someone fired. The offensive coordinator, Shane Waldron in Chicago. I thought that was clever. But defensively, Steve, man, Caleb really didn't have a whole lot of places to go with the ball. The defense played terrific coverage all across the board. I think the way they're using John Jones is really interesting, kind of making him float between safety, corner, kind of moving all around. I thought Marcus Jones has had some good returns, but I thought this was maybe his best week in coverage. I thought that Jalen Hawkins, Del Pettis out of nowhere kind of came up with
Yeah.
some big plays. Guys were taking opportunities up front. Dietrich Wise and Keon White were just on, and I actually mentioned the edges. I don't know if you remember last week, it was one of my bigger keys, winning in the trenches. And I thought, again, offensive line played well, defensive line dominated, and I thought it just showed. And honestly, it was a pretty pathetic performance from Chicago all the way around. I mean, they did not look like a professional football team. And look, sometimes you're going to have games like that, but to do that at home, it's tough. And then you see some of the body language with Caleb there. And then there's rumblings about people want to make a quarterback switch and bench him. Some people wanted the whole coaching staff fired. They ended up just doing the OC. They ended up giving him his pink slip. But I'm trying to think.
Yeah,
they were cruising.
Yeah, they draft Caleb Williams and they keep their coach, who's a defensive coach. I just thought that was, right from the get-go. But you were talking about the defense, and the one guy you're missing is my guy, right? Anthony Jennings, I thought, was outstanding in this game.
Yep. Yeah, he was. He was
two
awesome.
tackles, tackles for loss, and 3 quarterback hits.
Yep. And Christian Gonzalez continues to have a terrific season. I mean, he's been lights out. He had DJ Moore. I think he was only targeted 4 times in the game, and I mean, just continues week after week to go ahead and put up impressive coverage. But yeah, Anthony Jennings. I mean, you could shout out almost everybody on that defense.
Jeremiah Farms. Keon.
Oh yeah. Okay, let's get back to Farms. That was his. I'm going to take a lap on that one. But Farms, that was his best game as a pro.
Yep. And I thought he was extremely disruptive. Keon White, he was disruptive. Dietrich Wise, two sacks, 2 quarterback hits. Roy had a sack. I mean, the defensive line and the linebackers, Jelani Tavai, I thought, he had been, to me, a disappointment all season. I thought he had his best game of the year last week, and I thought he was outstanding this week. So, maybe he's starting to stack some positive games together. That's always a good sign,
Yeah, definitely. Let's see. I thought DeAndre Swift for the Bears had a couple of nice runs, but they were having a hard time even being able to run the ball at all because they were so pass happy. And obviously they were down a good portion of the game, especially in that second half. So they had to kind of steer away from it. He went away. On the flip side, the Patriots kind of got their running game going, 144 yards on the ground, collectively. And they really got some good balance going on. And then you saw you incorporated that play action too. And you saw some of those shots, you saw, again, that's a big part of Drake Maye's game. I still can't get over it though, as an aside, seeing a Patriots offense with a quarterback that mobile and running out of like the pistol. It's just a weird, like optically as a fan that's been watching Brady for 2 decades, you see that and it's just kind of a head scratcher. Another thing about Maye though, that he needs to do, and it really is upsetting because you don't want him to get hurt. He makes a big run, but he dives head first, and that was early on in the game. It's like, dude, you got to slide or you're going to be out again, and I just feel like that's another thing I wanted to mention too, as I'm thinking about him.
Yeah.
Anything else on the defense, Steve?
Well, defensively, I just, hey, look, you're on the road. Granted, this team is really struggling right now, but you hold them to 3 points, 142 yards total offense, only 69 yards net passing. That's a great day. I don't care how bad they're struggling. And, you go back to early in the season, nobody was putting the asterisks up when the Patriots were struggling, right? No one said, oh, well, they're struggling. No, everyone said, hey, what a great game by this guy or that guy, so.
They played a lot of man coverage too, from a percentage standpoint. This is the most, snaps defensively in a game where they played man versus zone. And if you look at the Patriots' 3 wins this year, Bengals, Jets, and then of course the Bears, those are the 3 games with the highest man coverage percentage, snaps. And I just don't think that's a coincidence. I mean, it just seems like they're built better for playing man and kind of being aggressive. And I think that they're starting to kind of put it together now. Obviously, they're going to kind of mix it up, and I'll be curious how, what their plan is to deal with the Rams this coming week. And we'll talk about that later in the show. But, I thought that was interesting. And as Todd points out, Brendan Schooler gets that sack. He said after the game, it was his first sack at any level, high school, college, or the pros to this point. And I thought it was a good point. And if you saw the sidelines, they were going ballistic. I mean, they were.
Yeah. And Schooler was loving it.
Yeah, he was.
Hold on 1 second.
Not a problem.
Keep going.
So, yeah, not a problem. So I would also say this too, from a defensive standpoint, I think another thing that's very, very, it's actually kind of funny because they don't do it that well on special teams, which Steve and I could probably get to at some point. But one aspect I think defensively that's been really underrated and has been a big problem around the league is how well they tackle on defense. When they've had their issues on special teams in the return game, it's like, man, it's either Behringer outkicks his coverage because he has just such a killer leg, or the gunner misses the first tackle and then the returner goes, off to the races, and it's a huge play. And I thought that was another big key for how the Patriots and Bears, this game started, and why it felt like the winds were flowing in the right direction for New England is because basically they continued to put Chicago in good starting field position offensively, and they couldn't do anything about it. It didn't matter that they were getting set up on the 40. You had the issue with the return. You had Joey Sly trying to kind of have a look like a line drive, kind of a kick, and hit it just in front of the landing zone. And then there's a penalty, which I still think people are trying to figure out, like the little loopholes. And as the season progresses, I think you'll see. Different teams kind of taking advantage and seeing more things. It's a copycat league. We all know that. Going back to the offensive line too, I think we're starting to see guys play with a little bit more cohesiveness. I still think Mike Onwenu has struggled a lot more than I was expecting, but I do think they have something kind of going. I don't think it's good enough. It certainly in the offseason will be a huge point of emphasis, and we'll be talking about that a lot, months down the line. But right now, it looks like they're at least trying to get a little bit of something going here, and I thought that was, really kind of encouraging, from a takeaway standpoint. But we're going to step aside here on Patriots 4th and 2, and we'll be back right after this. All right, and we are back here on Patriots 4th and 2. Again, Derek Havens, Steve Balestrieri here. We are both PatsFans.com bloggers. Please do subscribe to us on our YouTube channel, as well as leaving us a review on Apple Podcasts or wherever you listen to podcasts. Like, share, leave us a review. It keeps us high in the podcast rankings so other Patriots fans can find us. Steve, I just took a break for us here, and I want to switch over after our recap and get into the Drake Maye leadership standpoint in the receiver room before we get into our preview. So do you want to start with the receivers, or do you want to start with Drake?
Let's start off with the receivers.
Okay, so obviously Kendrick Bourne. This is not just a Kendrick Bourne conversation, but it is a receiver room as a whole. Steve, I think that there's something that just doesn't feel right about that whole room. I'm not really sure exactly what the issue is there, but Kendrick Bourne apparently was told the night before the game, so Saturday, that he wasn't going to play, and I guess because they wanted to have the young guys play, which I find interesting because then KJ Bourne started, or I guess played in the game. Now Kendrick Bourne did suit up, so they were just not utilizing him. But something with him is not, I don't know what's going on 100% there, but there's something going on behind the scenes. And I don't know what's going on in that room, but it doesn't feel right.
No, it seems odd that, okay, we're going to dress you, but you're not going to play. You know, I think that's kind of a weird message, because you're telling a guy he's not going to play, but then what happens if one of the other guys gets hurt? I mean, then you're telling him to go in there and you know, and step up. But you know, if you're going to play the young guys, then why isn't Baker or Bell getting more, you know, reps? I mean, I didn't get that part, you know, and you know, Demario Douglas and Butte were the only guys who were targeted more than once as wide receivers. I
Yeah.
mean, the tight ends were obviously.
I think Booty's been interesting. Yeah, you know, I still think he has his issues, which is why he dropped as a first rounder to, what was it, a sixth rounder? I think he ended up going out of
Mhm.
LSU. But you see the talent every once in a while, and him and Drake seem to have a good connection. Polk really hasn't done a whole lot. He did get his first touchdown this week, and I'm hoping he builds on that. I still think he'll be
Second touchdown.
yeah, sorry, second.
Yeah.
So I still think you have something there. Pop's been not regularly involved enough for me. And I'd like to see, you know, if you're going to play KJ Osborne, play at least Javon Baker, even if you don't trust him 100%. It's like, it makes no sense. KJ Osborne is not part of the team next year, in my opinion. I mean, he could be resigned, but he's on a 1-year deal. You know, they just gave Kendrick Bourne a 3-year extension before the season started.
Right.
And then you draft these two young receivers, and it just, I don't know, the whole thing it just seems very odd to me, Steven. I know that's a little Boston radio-ish, but it's really not, because to go ahead and have so many different reports that just seem so conflicting, it just seems like maybe whoever is talking to the media where they're getting these stories, it seems like someone's talking out of both sides of their mouth. And I'm not sure if it's like agent and receiver saying one thing and the, you know, in the front office coaching staff saying another. I'm not sure what it is, but it just doesn't add up.
Yeah, and it is strange. I mean, because, you know, like you said, they've been very patient with Bourne. He had the ACL last year. They gave him an extension. This is a guy that says, you know, he wants to retire as a Patriot. And then you got Osborne, who was requesting a trade, and he plays. And I'm wondering if there's something more there with Bourne, to where, you know, they were sending him a message. I don't know. I mean, like you said, there's got to be more to this than meets the eye, you know, because if
There's no way. Yeah.
if you're going to play the young guys, why didn't we see more Bell? Why didn't we see more Baker? You know, why was Osborne in there then? You know, so I don't know.
Yeah.
There's something going on behind the scenes that we're not privy to.
And it seems like it goes back to London, you know, maybe even sooner than that. But certainly, whatever happened in London, whatever didn't happen in London, it just seems like something is not 100%, you know, there. So,
yeah, and you know, I mean, we've heard rumors about stuff in London, and you know,
I'm not sure. Yeah, but that's so hard to like decipher, you know, what's true, what's not true. That's a hard thing to do. But let's switch over to Drake and talk about, man, there's so many different directions. So Patriots, you know, Patriots.com and, you know, Craft Sports Productions, they, you know, they do the locker room, you know, inside the locker room only after, you know, victories. Game balls went to Jelani Tavai and also Joey Sly because they both became dads this last week. Congratulations to them.
yeah,
And let's see. I just thought, you know, you see inside the locker room, Drake going up to every single one of his offensive linemen, kind of giving him a little, you know, dapping him up a little bit, saying, you know, and I just thought that was impressive. You go back to after, and this is confirmed by Drake because he talked about it. It was after practice this last Wednesday. He wasn't happy with the performance on the practice field, and he asked Alex Van Pelt and I think Gerard to, you know, speak to the group, and he did. And I thought that's impressive for a 22-year-old rookie who's only played, 5 games now. So I think that stood out. And then, also KSP, when they put out some of this, sidelines footage and whatever, you saw him, Drake going up and down the bench, again, kind of encouraging guys. He's going for the offensive line. He's like, hey, it starts with the 6 of us, yada, yada. I don't know. I just think he's, for one, a likable kid, but I just was really impressed with the kind of leadership he's starting to display already.
Yeah, that's why I'm saying this is his team now.
Oh, yeah.
And these guys believe in him.
Yep.
And, it's not just because he's the next guy up. I think they truly believe in him. They see what this offense can be with him. And they're just scratching the surface of it right now. But, you can already see the things, that we see flashes of here and there. And once they get to put it all together, I think, we're looking at the quarterback of the future. I mean, I think the sky's the limit for this kid. And I love the way, he doesn't dwell on, all of the kudos he's getting. He's fixating on the mistakes he's making and trying to fix them. And you love to see that in a quarterback, especially a young guy. And, I just love the way he approaches the game. He doesn't get too high, doesn't get too low. He always looks very much in control, what's going on. And, he knew he made a blunder when he threw that terrible interception.
Yeah. It was a terrible interception.
Yeah. I think he said he was trying to throw it away. But I think at the last minute, he thought he could loop it over, the linebacker to get it to, I believe it was Hooper. And
he tried to pull a wanted and curve it like a bullet.
Yeah. And it was like, he was good. He had his mind throw it away. Then he saw Hooper and he kind of went right in the middle with it, right to Edwards, the linebacker. So, and with a rookie quarterback, you have to live with those things.
Right. And I would just say too, I mean, even after the game, just some of the poise on the, the post-game interview on the field. I just love the way he carried himself. I will say I didn't care for the telling the media members to clap for the defense. I know it came out of a good place. Okay. And I didn't dare tweet this because I just felt like I was just going to get attacked. But, it's like he
was
like
a little overexcited. Man.
He was excited, and I know he just wanted to give his teammates, the praise. But it's like those guys are there to not be fans, to ask questions and get your responses and report on it, and get the news out and things like that. They're not there to be fans, But I still understood where he was coming from, and I got it. But I will say too, the Drake to Josh Allen comparison is a little old, and they have certainly a lot of similarities. But Josh is I know they're listed similar things, but Josh is a bigger dude. He's a kind of a different beast. And I do think that there are some similarities. I mean,
their mindset's similar.
Certainly. I mean, and it's similar from some of the issues, remember Josh Allen. I mean, the first 2 years, it was like, is he going to be able to get it together? He would rip it 60 yards on the run, like we've seen Drake do a couple of times. And then you saw him be 3rd and 5, and he has a wide open guy on a crosser, and he'd sail it. And I'm not saying that we've seen that from Drake, but we saw similar kind of interceptions and things like that. I just think the comparisons, it makes sense when you look at it. You just hope the trajectory is similar. Obviously, you'd hit the lottery if that's the case. But yeah. I do think he's on the right path, and you just want to see that ascension. I hope by the end of the year we continue to see the poise and the leadership, but also you just clean up some of those dumb turnovers. I think that would be big.
Absolutely. And, Todd said Brady-esque.
Well, let's talk about, I'll tell you what was Brady-esque was the 35-second drive, to end that first half. And I know I already mentioned it once, but I mean, seriously, I just could have been more impressed with how they came out. And they obviously, you don't do that. If Gerard Mayo is not the coach and Bill Belichick is, I think that Bill sits on the ball and says, "Hey, we're up on the road. Let's just go in, regroup, call it." Gerard and AVP had enough, faith in Drake to let him go out there and sling it. I mean, that throw to Jalen Polk was so on the money, and that's not an easy throw for one. And I know I've already touched on it, but to have that, if you're AVP, to have that in your back pocket and pull it out there and have the faith in your rookie to go ahead and just sling it down the field, I thought was incredibly impressive. And then they go ahead and run up and spike it, and you get 1 second left to have the command of that 2-minute offense like that in your fifth start. Whew, that was just as encouraging as anything else you saw on the field on Sunday.
Yeah, and the fact that they were aggressive this time, they were aggressive. They had a plan, and they executed it, and it looked pretty damn good.
Yep.
Excuse me, Miguel. I'll put another $1 in the
jar. Anything else you want to get to before we head to our Rams preview?
Well,
I got one for you. Actually. Did you see last night's game at all?
Yes.
I didn't watch the entire thing because it was very boring, I thought, for a good majority of the game. I can appreciate some good defense and everything, but I don't know, it's just kind of sloppy. Did you see the interception Tua threw, and then he dove headfirst to the returner?
Yes.
It's like I saw that, and I'm like, dude, why you're diving headfirst? He's asking to get a knee to the ear hole and be out again with another concussion.
Well, when he it was a very awkward tackle, right? But then he puts his head down and sticks his head in there. And I'm thinking, this guy, what is he thinking about? I mean, are you trying to prove that you're a tough guy to the point where your career is going to be over?
Right.
I mean, I just thought that was so, I'm not a Dolphins fan, but I was sitting there and I sucked in my breath at that moment. Because I'm like, oh no, because I don't want to see this unfold again on television,
Did a couple other quick hitters I got for you. Did you see the interim coach for the Saints hurt his knee celebrating?
Yeah.
Who was that? Was it Martin Gramatica, like forever ago, that tore his ACL?
Yeah, he tore his ACL on a game-winning kick.
Yeah, and speaking of game-winning kicks, Denver almost had one. I thought Sean Payton managed the game really well down the stretch, and then the Chiefs just pulled a horseshoe right out of, they pulled a horseshoe out. That entire left side of that Broncos special teams offensive line just was caved in. I mean, it was almost laughable. But the Chiefs just continue to roll on. Steve, any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I thought Denver did a really good job of hanging in there. And then, you're thinking, hey, they're driving the ball here at the end of the game.
Yep.
And it's like, they're going to win. Because that was a chip shot. That was a 35-yard field goal.
Right.
I mean, that wasn't like a tough one where you have to, alter your trajectory. Like a 60-yarder or something. I mean, that was literally like an extra point. And, I was just like, oh, you got to be kidding me. And that was a jailbreak. I mean, that wasn't
definitely.
Yeah, one guy, like you said. I mean, the whole left side came blasting through. So, I mean, that was crazy. And, a couple of other games I thought were interesting. I thought, back to last night's game, I thought the Rams looked really lackadaisical on both sides of the ball. And I didn't think Miami looked all that great either.
No, Miami's really struggling. And, Miami starts with
their first drive. I mean, it looked like they were going to light it up, right?
Right.
But then after that, they didn't do very much. And, I just thought it was a good night for the Patriots because it was a Monday night game. They're home. They're watching their next two opponents, and they get to, watch the entire game and see where they might be able to game plan this or that. And one thing to remember, we'll get into this in the Rams preview, but the Rams have a short week.
Yep.
Then they have to fly all the way over, to the East Coast. So
Yep. It's a big, that's a very long flight. Now, sometimes the travel thing is overrated because these guys don't sit necessarily on Southwest and 28, B, but
yeah, with like -2 inches of leg room, but
yeah. But I still think it's, kind of an interesting factor. I also think that what Jim Harbaugh's done with the Chargers just shows you the difference. I mean, look, they basically have the same team as they did last year, and except for the fact they got rid of Keenan Allen and Austin Eckler and Mike Williams, and so they removed 3 pretty key pieces for them, and then you insert Jim Harbaugh and his new staff, and all of a sudden, I think they already have one more win than they did all of last season. So, an impressive. I just want to
and
give
again,
them a shout out.
I'm watching the Chargers, and I'm thinking to myself on Sunday night, why didn't the Bears sign Jim Harbaugh?
Yeah. Well, they also passed on Cliff Kingsbury for Shane Waldron, and so did and so did the Raiders, because the Raiders had Luke Getsy at offensive coordinator, and then the Bears had Shane Waldron, and it didn't make any sense. But then Cliff just went to Washington, and he's been thriving and helping Jaden Daniels thrive. But Cliff Kingsbury and Caleb were together, at one point. So I just thought that whole thing doesn't make sense. And now you pass on them, and the other 2 go, and that's all she is. But I guess that wraps it up.
I think Caleb Williams is going to be a good quarterback, but they could ruin him there, because next year he's going to have a whole new coaching staff.
Whoever they hire next for the coaching staff is going to be like the head coach, and the coaching staff will be incredibly important for Caleb.
Yeah, because right now I think he's regressing, not improving.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he looked frustrated and shaken up this last week.
Mm-hmm.
But let's flip over, because we wanted to touch on some NFL topics, but we are a Patriots show, so we got to keep it Patriots centric, and we will. We'll start off. And Steve, you kind of already touched on the Rams from their performance last night. What is your first initial thoughts with the LA Rams?
I don't. I know their offense had a very off night, and which was surprising because they got a couple of their best players back, right? So I was thinking, I picked the Rams to win. I pick every game during the season on my Sunday column, and I obviously picked the Thursday games earlier, but I've been having a great season until this week.
Yep.
I was 138 going into this week.
Straight up?
Straight up.
Okay.
And I picked the Bears. that was a mistake.
I took the Patriots, if I'm not mistaken, on the show.
Yeah, you did.
Yeah, that's right.
And I picked the Rams. I thought, with getting their guys back, they were going to be, their offense looked really out of sync. And I just didn't come away. I know they held Miami to virtually, like 200 and something yards there, but I just didn't think their defense looked very, I don't know. They have good players. They just don't seem to play well together. And I think that's something that the Patriots might be able to take advantage of this week.
Yeah, absolutely. You talking about keeping your record makes me think we should next season. We'll do it next season. We'll both, after we both make our predictions for the game week 1, week 2, we can mention and we can tally it up and see who picks the Patriots better throughout the year, just for a little fun. Because we never talk about what we pick. Even after you said you took the Bears, I was like, I took the Patriots, I think.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, I just did. After last week, I just didn't feel like they were going to be able to go on the road and win, but they proved me quite wrong. Yep. I was happy to be wrong for that one.
Yep. I guess for me, I just feel like the Rams, they've obviously had a lot of They look, they sold out for the Super Bowl, and F the picks or whatever that slogan was for them, and they were going out and acquiring all this talent, and then all of a sudden the bill comes due, and guys get older and retire, or they lose them in free agency, whether it's Jalen Ramsey, Odell, lose Aaron Donald, Andrew Whitworth. I mean, you can go on and on and on, and I just think you're looking at a team that's certainly a shell of itself. I do think McVay is a very good coach, certainly in the top. I don't know, rank him where you want him, but I'd probably put him 3 or 4, right up there. But I just think they kind of lack some identity. They do have a decent defense. Jared Verse is playing terrific on the edge. He's having a really good, solid season. So he's very interesting. Offensively, they just don't really look like they can ever get a lot of traction. And I think that will be a big part in the Patriots defense this year, or this upcoming week, is just to make sure they don't get some of that traction going, because Matt Stafford isn't the player that he was. I mean, he's certainly lost a lot on that arm, which was just massive when he was coming out of Georgia, another lifetime ago. And they're not pushing the ball downfield. Obviously, you got Kupp, you got Nakua, you have guys. Kyren Williams has scored in a lot of games this year, but they just don't really have a lot of juice. And I think it comes through when you watch them. It'll be interesting, because I think that even though a lot of people consider, even going back, let's use this last night's game as an example. The Dolphins and the Rams. I mean, the Dolphins were 2-6 at the time, now 2-7. The Rams were 4-4, now they're 5-4. Those are two teams that a lot of people thought
the
would
other
be
way around.
Oh,
Rams
yeah.
lost.
Oh, yeah. Excuse me. Yeah. So, well, anyway, it was 2-6 and 4-4 going into last night's game. And a lot of people expected them to be, certainly in the mix. I think I would make a really, really strong case that both of those teams are going to finish somewhere in at 3 or 4 of their divisions, right, as it stands right now. So I'm not sure what's going to happen. This upcoming week, but I do think that the Patriots defense will have an opportunity here to make something happen.
Yeah, offensively, I'm really curious to see how they can follow up. Now, granted, I thought the Patriots coaching staff had a great game on Sunday. It's going to be a lot tougher this week going against Sean McVay, and I'm wondering. Not only, the defense, because McVay running the offense, but I'm curious to see how the Patriots look to attack this team defensively or offensively this coming week. They had their first inkling of having a balanced attack. Granted, it wasn't great, but, it's just one of those things. I haven't looked at the Rams hard enough yet, but I'm thinking they're going to try to run the ball hard at them, and open up some play action. I think with the running game this week, it wasn't great, but the running backs churned out 120 something yards on the ground, 120 exactly, and that's not bad. So if they can continue that kind of balance, I think the passing game will definitely get better. I'm just curious how they look to attack it. I think it's going to be a run-centric start to this game.
Yeah, certainly. And, the Patriots have had their issues, with the run defense at times. And the Rams are kind of middle in the pack. I would say middle of the pack, but the Patriots are, towards the bottom. I want to say they're the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, yeah, eighth, like the 8th worst in terms of rush yards allowed. So take it for what it's worth. What are your thoughts on? I think one of the weird side things is how do the Patriots? How do they come off a win? A good road win, 19-3. You embarrassed that team. The expectations are low. Huge performance by the defense. How does the defense come out? How does the team come out and carry that over week to week? Was that a flash in the pan? Or are they building something over here over the last, you have 2 wins in the last 3 weeks? Are they able to kind of build? or not. Because I think you have the game against the Rams, you have a game against the Dolphins, you have a game against the Colts, and then the bye week. I think you have an opportunity to win 2 out of 3 of those games. But that being said, I'm not saying it's going to be easy, and they're certainly not a team you're just going to go ahead and just write in pen W next to people at this point. But I do think there's an opportunity here.
Point.
No, hopefully maybe next year or the year after, but we'll see. So what's your take on that whole that whole thought process?
Well, I think the defense, I mean, their confidence has to be sky high right now, because like you said, they're figuring out how their pieces work best in man coverage. This is a week they don't have to worry about the quarterback scrambling for a ton of yardage.
Mm-hmm.
So the aggressive style, granted, again, the Bears offensive line was all banged up, but the way they were bringing pressure from all points of the field, I thought that was fantastic. And, when you're having trouble, they've been getting pressure, but they haven't been getting home with it. And when you're having trouble getting home with it, that will help. I mean, you look at, 9 sacks and I think it was 14 quarterback hits.
Yep.
Now you're getting home. And I'm wondering if they try to recreate that. Obviously they're going to have to do it differently facing the Rams offense, but if they try to recreate that aggressiveness, in different matchups.
Well, and you have 2 very different quarterbacks. You have one rookie who's barely cracked into this league, who has a ton of mobility, and then you have another quarterback who's been in the league for a very long time, ton of experience, has pretty much seen everything. But I wouldn't necessarily call him a statue, but he's not necessarily a scrambler. Let's put it that way. So you do have 2 very different styles. So again, going back to your point, how does the defense make the adjustment this week to next week, and can they do some carryover here? Let's do our I guess let's go back and forth with, who has the edge here. Let's go with the Patriots offense first. Steve, I'll start with you. Patriots offense in the running game versus the Rams and, defense. Who has the advantage?
They've only run the ball well this last week.
I know.
But I have a feeling they're going to be able to run the ball against the Rams.
Okay.
I just, I think, this is the third time this offensive line played together, and I thought they were pretty good. Were they great? No, they weren't great, but they were good. I mean, they blocked well in the running game. I thought pass protection was pretty good all game long. The Bears have a good defense. I don't think anyone's arguing that point. And I thought they held up pretty well. I mean, May only got sacked the one time for 0 yards. He was only hit a handful of times. So, if they can continue that kind of play with these 5 starters, hey, let it keep rolling it. So I think they're going to be able to run.
All righty. Well, I certainly agree with you on that. I do think. I look again. The Rams are in the middle of the pack as far as running goes, but I'm hoping the Patriots are going to be able to carry some momentum here and get Stevenson going. I just think, for one, it just takes so much pressure off Drake Maye, and then you can get into the creativity of the pistol, the RPOs, the play actions with Drake, and I think that's when you could start kind of moving that defense a little bit more. And if they can score early in the game and make Stafford and the offense kind of put it more uphill, I just think that would be the better way to go. Patriots offense in the passing game, Steve, versus the Rams defense. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, there's still it's still kind of clunky at times with the passing game. I mean, like we've both said during the show, they show flashes of it, and that one drive at the end of the half, I thought that was fantastic. But I'm going to give the Rams the advantage here because they haven't been able to do it consistently yet.
I agree with you. I would give the Rams the advantage. It's funny, if you look at almost every, I don't care if it's offense, you go to NFL.com, go to team stats. You go to offense, passing, rushing. You go to defense, passing, rushing. The Rams are in the middle on like every category. Like they're just kind of middle of the road, which explains the record kind of a middle of the road team. I just think given Drake Maye just making his sixth start and the offense being a little erratic in the passing game, I feel like you have to give the Rams the edge there. Let's go Rams running game versus the Patriots defense. What are your thoughts on that? You have Kyren Williams, who's able to, make some things happen at times. I wouldn't call him like a threat to score at all times, but he's been able to punch it in quite a bit this year.
Sure. And, I thought at times last night, I thought he looked pretty good. And then there was, so with this one, again, the Patriots run defense, first time since week 2, they held a opponent under 100 yards. I'd like to see him do it again. So right now, I'm going to give the advantage to the Rams here.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard. The Patriots' run defense has really struggled at times, and Kyren Williams, basically, you look at it. His rush yards have been pretty consistent throughout the year. 50, 25, a little slow. And then it was 89, 94, 102, 76, 97, 69, 62. He's constantly involved. And then he's also getting, anywhere between usually about 3 to 5 targets, give or take, in the passing game. So he's involved in both things. I think the Patriots are going to have to go ahead and I don't want to say just put it all on Matthew Stafford's shoulders. I'm sure if they want to just run the ball and keep the score down, I'm sure the Patriots would be fine with that. But you just don't want to let someone get going, and he's going to be certainly a target to keep in mind. If you flip it to the passing game for the Rams versus the Patriots defense, Steve, how do you feel about it and why?
I just have the feeling that the pass defense is going to step up again this week. I could be way off on this one because they have the personnel to light you up. We've seen that in the past.
Mm-hmm.
I just have the feeling that the Patriots defense, I just love the way they were flying around the ball, the way they were blitzing. And like you said, Stafford isn't, he's not going to be confused with Patrick Mahomes or, those kind of guys that run the, all crazy around the backfield. So I have the feeling, and Todd just mentioned they blitzed a lot. I think the Patriots are going to blitz a lot this week, and they'll live or die by it. But I think they're going to get to Stafford a bunch this week, and I think the Patriots are going to have the advantage here.
Yeah, I think there's going to be some opportunities potentially for some takeaways too. But I do think they're going to stay aggressive. I think that Covington and Mayo kind of felt like they have a little bit of that secret sauce and from this last week, and I think they'll carry it around, coming up. Let's flip it over, Steve, to 3 keys and give our prediction, and then we're going to pick a couple of random games before we close out the show. Give me your 3 keys for how the Patriots can win this game versus the LA Rams.
Yeah, I think you have to stay balanced offensively. If they last week they got the running game going, they got the passing game going a little. This week, I think you need to get more of that. So to me, staying balanced offensively, and then number 2 key, I think they're going to take some shots down the field. They have to hit on these. I think, when the opportunities avail itself, you have to strike on these. That's one of the things that, you go back to a couple of the games that they lost. They just missed opportunities here or there. When they avail themselves, you have to get 6. And third, I think you have to blitz Stafford on this one. They didn't have a good week last week. Maybe there's a little bit of discombobulation in there, and you have to make them pay.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. I think my first key, I'd start with the running game. Both sides of the ball, I think, is going to be important. You touched on it. I've touched on it as well. For the Patriots, it's like you got it takes so much pressure off Maye. It opens up AVP's offensive playbook there. And then also, I think if you can limit the Rams running game and take Kyren Williams kind of more out of the game, one of their better players on offense. I mean, obviously you have Kupp and Nacua in the passing game, but I'd say besides those two, Williams would be right there as that next big threat. You take him out of the game, and hopefully you probably put Christian Gonzalez on Cooper Kupp, and then you just really have to focus on Nacua. So I think if the front seven can neutralize Kyren Williams and Gonzalez can do what he's been doing, you can try to hopefully flip a couple guys around, spin the dial with Nacua in coverage, and try to live and die with that. If someone like Demarcus Robinson, their third receiver beats you, then you can lay your head on the pillow at night and fall asleep easy. So, to me, the running game would be huge. Two, I agree with you about the red zone. I think that's critical. I just feel like, you kind of took the words out of my mouth a little bit, especially when you're facing a team that has, championship pedigree. You have a really good head coach, a really intelligent quarterback that can hurt you, even if he's not what he was several years ago. You just have to go ahead and maximize your opportunities. And the Patriots they're just not good enough to overcome some of their own issues. And, that's where I get into my third key, which is turnovers and penalties. Specifically penalties, Steve. When we stepped away for a break earlier in the show, and you had to step away for a second, I had mentioned that, we both talked about how we felt like the Patriots had controlled the game early, even when it was only 3-0. And one of the things that I mentioned, which is why I felt that way, is because the Patriots continued to make mistakes, especially with some of these penalties and issues where Chicago was starting with really good starting field position their first few drives, and they just can't. They have to play the cleanest game they can possibly play. Now, luckily for them last week, Chicago was so inept that they couldn't take advantage of it. The Rams are not going to be the same this week. So that's going to be something where they have to go ahead and play a clean game. And it starts with, taking care of what you can control, which is not having some stupid penalties and making sure you're not making any dumb turnovers there.
Excellent.
Do we want to start with the three random games real quick
Sure.
And then get to the Patriots prediction last?
Sure thing.
Okay, let's start with Thursday night's game, which should be a great one. I'm looking forward to this one. Washington Commanders at the Philadelphia Eagles on Prime. What are your thoughts on this game?
I think this is going to be a fantastic game. They're obviously old rivals. I think Jaden Daniels is having a great season. I mean, it went right down to the wire. They almost pulled it out against the Steelers. I think that Dan Quinn is doing a great job with Washington, but I just have the feeling the Eagles are going to eke this one out. And they haven't been overly impressive either. At times they look great, other times not so much. But I think the Eagles, the experience factor will come to play here. I think they eke this one out in a very close game.
I think it's going to be a really good game. I'm excited to see it. I would be very nervous if I was Jaden Daniels to go up against that Eagles front. Even though the Eagles have been inconsistent, they still usually come out with, pretty good games. And for them, it's all about the trenches. I mean, consistently they invest in the offensive and defensive line, and it shows up so many times week after week after week. I'm going to go with the Eagles at home. If it was in Washington, maybe, but it might be one of those, like it comes out like the Eagles win by 10, but it feels like it was, like a 3 to 5 point game. It, didn't feel like that. It was kind of a backdoor, cover. I'm not sure what the spread is, but to me, that's interesting. Another game that I think is fascinating is the Ravens at the Steelers. And you're talking about, for one, a Ravens team that, they've had their problems in the postseason, but Lamar's just been incredible, and they've really gotten going. The balance they've had with Derrick Henry, too, has been a great addition. And I got to give Mike Tomlin a ton of credit. I mean, year after year, he just continues to, whatever buttons he pushes, it might, they might not be talented enough to be a true contender, but he's always going to make it tough on you. So it's a real street fight, this one. I'm going to take the Ravens with the win on the road, but I could see this one being a total coin flip.
Yeah, the Ravens defense isn't that great this year.
No.
So that will be something to watch.
But the Ravens defense hasn't been that good, but the offense is really good. But the Steelers defense has been pretty good, but the offense has been pretty Yeah. So it's kind of an opposite one.
Yeah. So when those two teams play, I was just on as I mentioned earlier, the other show at 8:00, Mel Farr Jr., who played in the NFL, he said this is one of those games where you make sure your mouthpiece is in the whole time and you put the extra air in your helmet.
I like it. Chiefs at Bills, Steve. This week, the afternoon game, America's game of the week. I think it's going to be an awesome one to watch. The Chiefs continue to just keep rolling, but the Bills are at home. They've been a powerhouse in their own way. I think Kansas City has had their number for the most part, but it's in Buffalo. I don't know where you want to go on this one. To me, I'm going to take the Bills, but if the Chiefs beat the Bills on the road here, you look at their schedule. I don't think they're going to go perfect, but they're going to be tough to bring down. This is a huge test for Buffalo. I think that would be a huge momentum thing to have that going into the postseason, because you have to feel like this is a playoff preview kind of a game.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And I like the Bills in this one because, as we know, it's tough to go undefeated.
Absolutely.
You're going to have those games like Kansas City had last week, where it looked like they were going to lose and they blocked the field goal the last play of the game. I just have a feeling that Buffalo is going to beat them this week. Again, really close game, might go down to the wire, but I look for Josh Allen to do Josh Allen things this week.
I'm with you. Let's say we go over to the Patriots, Steve, to wrap this one up. Let's give our predictions for the Patriots game at home, 1:00 Eastern versus the Rams.
Every time I pick them to win, they lose. So
please go LA then.
Well, this is the week we're going to break that skid, right?
Okay.
And I do this every time they win one game. I start.
I feel the same way. I know where we're going.
I think they're going to upset the Rams this week.
Yep.
I think they're starting to believe in their team, and again, they're a long way from being where they need to be. But I think they're coming together as a group. I think they've weathered some really bad storms this season, but they've won 2 out of 3, and I just have that feeling they're gonna eke out a win against the Rams. I'm thinking like 24-23.
Okay. I am also going with the Patriots for this one. I don't know if I'm just looking through the rose-colored glasses or what, but I'm hoping, and I could be wrong here, but I'm hoping that they're going to carry that kind of win last week, even though it's against a mediocre opponent, a middle of the road opponent. Well, you know what? The Rams are a middle of the road opponent. Now, I don't think they're necessarily the same. I would think the Rams are a better team personally, but I would just say this. I'm hoping to see that defense kind of find its niche a little bit and build off that, pin their ears back and go and play aggressive like Mayo and Covington like to. And I'm hoping that the offense comes together and builds off what they did last week. We've seen Drake again progress. I don't want to say week after week, because I did think this last game was not one of his better ones, but we've seen certain things each week that we come away saying, wow, we really like this kid. This week, we saw his leadership and poise really come through. And, you saw the leadership, as we already talked about, the poise at the end of the first half, and, his playmaking ability. I think that I want to see him build up that this week. I'm going with Patriots 23, Rams 16.
Lower scoring. I like it.
Yeah. Well, both teams are kind of right in the middle in certain categories. But so I don't know. I'm not expecting a huge, a barn burner, but maybe we'll see. All right, Steve, let's wrap this up. Any final thoughts before we head out?
Well, I think this week's schedule is fantastic. I mean, there's some great games on there. I look forward to seeing all of them this week. I wish I could watch every single one, but that's going to be impossible. But the Patriots this week at home, the Bills, of course, the Jets losing last week was just cherry on the top. They were talking about running the table, and that didn't last very long. So things are great. We're looking forward to some good games. I think the Patriots got a win, and I just want to see them continue to build.
No, I'm with you. I'm with you on that. I'll also mention too, we are recording this. We started recording, I should say, right about 7:15 Eastern Tuesday. Usually, again, we
9:15.
do noon. I'm sorry, what?
9:15.
9:15. Sorry, I was thinking Arizona time. Usually, we do noon Eastern or right around there on Wednesdays. We're gonna get back to a regular schedule soon because of my schedule, some personal stuff. I had to go ahead and keep my schedule free for Wednesday. So that's why we're doing it here. So I'm sure it'll be posted on Wednesday at some time when Russ has the chance. We appreciate that, Russ. Thank you. But thank you all for being flexible, joining in. Todd for chiming in when he could. Please, again, do subscribe to us on YouTube and our Patriots 4th and 2 channel, as well as leaving us a review on Apple Podcasts. Like, share, leave us a review. It keeps us high in the podcast ranking so other Patriots fans can find us. For Steve Balestrieri, I'm Derek Havens. Again, with PatsFans.com. We will see you guys next week. Thanks for listening.